I would be derelict in my duty if I didn't talk about school safety with all the stuff going on in the news. Okay, what's interesting is first I want to tell you this. I do support more stringent background checks regarding mental illness, but I'm going to talk a little bit about why this is not exactly right. In my opinion, look, if you're too crazy to work because you're crazy and you get paid by the government because you're nuts, okay, you don't need to own a firearm. It's that simple. But beyond that, let me explain. When I was a kid, well, not really a kid, when I was in high school, actually my senior year, I think it was. No, it wasn't, but I forget exactly what grade I was in, but that Columbine thing happened. What is not mentioned about this is all of these mass shooters are receiving psychiatric care or mental health care. Like that dude in Aurora, I think it was Aurora, Colorado that did that. The guy that shot the poor congresswoman, all these people. They're all under the care or taking medication for psychiatric reasons. What is never brought up is the idea, does mental health treatment actually work? Now, what you need to understand, because of the vague diagnoses and the vague nature of behavioral health, there's people walking around with all sorts of diagnoses. So what you have with this stringent mental health screening and all this is you have a danger of basically mooting the Second Amendment, okay? Because too many people are too easily deemed mentally ill. That's why I state, no, if you're too crazy to work because you're crazy and you stay at home and get paid by the government to stay home, you don't need to own a gun. That's what I would say. Like, I think Barack Obama tried to do that. But the thing is, what you need to understand is the important question needs to be, why doesn't mental health or behavioral health actually work? That's the big question. There needs to be more funding to make behavioral health actually get results. The thing is, there is an how can I put this? There is an assumption that you will get better if you go to a cardiologist. There is an assumption that you will get better if you go to an oncologist, except for things like pancreatic cancer. There is an assumption that you will get better if you go to a neurologist or a pulmonary doctor or an endocrinologist. There is an assumption with every other form of medical treatment that it will work in some way, shape, or form. Okay? Psychiatry and behavioral health, they go, oh, well, at least you might not get any worse. But what's avoided is the fact, before psychotropic medicine and before this deification of the therapist and all this other nonsense, people did actually get better. In fact, the sanitarium system of the Seventh-day Adventists got great results, and that's because they promoted behavioral modification based on morality. They also believed in, a strict vegan diet, daily vigorous exercise, daily exposure to the sun, the 8 Adventist laws of health, okay? And beyond that, what we need to start looking at is, why are we not funding, as a nation, more extensive, legitimate biomedical research into the actual causes of behavioral anomalies? Because what I see happening, when I worked in mental health, there was one dude, and I know this for a fact because I knew him outside of the mental health clinic. He was wrongly diagnosed with panic disorder and had alcohol-induced heart failure. Okay? As I stated in a previous video, my girlfriend's friend's mother had a brain tumor that was wrongly diagnosed as bipolar disorder. The thing is, you cannot expect things to get better through behavioral health, because behavioral health is philosophy operating as medicine. It's pretend. And it doesn't work outside the subjective view of the diagnoser or the therapist. It's witch doctoring. It's voodoo. It's witchcraft. It's not real, okay? Now, to go further, what I would say, what you also don't hear about with things, see, remember, I said I was in high school when that Columbine nonsense happened. That was the first big shooting, right? What you don't hear mentioned, you'll hear Marilyn Manson mentioned, you'll hear trench coats mentioned, Satanism mentioned, whatever. But what you do not hear mentioned is the fact that what you had going on there was you had a chick straw purchase the weapons, okay? And you rarely, if ever, hear the fact that they also utilized devices, homemade devices, that, you know, what do you call them? IEDs. They made IEDs. I'll just use that term. And that's what they used as well as the firearms. You don't hear that mentioned. You never hear that the problem is also the fact that crazy people are going to be crazy no matter what. But by cracking down on mental illness and cracking down on people and ostracizing them for being mentally ill, the only thing you're going to do is keep them from getting mental health care, which honestly I agree with, because I think people get more screwed up by mental health care than helped. But the fact of the matter is, what you are doing by ostracizing the mentally ill is you're telling these mentally ill people, if you come here for treatment, people are going to know you're crazy, the police are going to know you're crazy, everybody's going to know you're crazy, and you're not going to get any help. When I worked at the mental health clinic, me and an older lady that was a therapist there, we used to joke that it was a lot easier to convince crazy people that they were crazy when they said the government was out to get them before the freaking government admitted that they were out to get them. You have to remember that we have a spy state, and I'm not saying this to be paranoid or anything like that, and usually you don't need to worry unless you do something wrong. That's true. But what is wrong is changing very greatly every day. Soon, certain speech will be banned. I would guarantee it. I basically predict a world where any anti-Israeli statements will be banned or punishable by a fine or imprisonment, like in Europe. With the if you make an anti-Israeli, anti-Zionist, or anti-Semitic statement, bada bing, bada boom, you win the slammer, yo. So you got to look at the reality. We are moving rapidly toward a National Socialist / USSR style psychiatric system of persecution. And that's what concerns me more than the school shooting. Because you have to remember, with all the school shootings, that ain't a drop in the bucket compared to urban violence. That's nothing compared to urban violence. And you never hear anybody mention urban violence, because when you mention urban violence, you have to mention Black Americans.